Hello and good morning, everyone. Craig Whitney here, founder of Next Level Coaching and the Legacy Forge podcast. Welcome back. Good morning, good day, and good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. We have an epic episode today based around the theme of somatic or body healing. And we're not just talking the physical, we're talking that inner journey, that interesting inner journey. Now, the Legacy Forge, we're not just a podcast here. This is pretty much a fire that we sit around where our identity melts, where truth can be exposed, and where the body speaks stories the mind tries to hide. Today, I'm joined by someone who isn't just about knowledge. It's all about embodiment and embodiment of the body. Someone who helps leaders move from people-pleasing power, perhaps, to complete embodied power, from collapse to center, from self-abandonment to self-authority. Tatjana, I've got that correct. Welcome to the Forge.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Beautiful. Now, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, subscribe on all channels, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube for the video. Let's just drop your breath now. We're in for a beauty today. Go straight into your belly, quick exercise, wherever you are. Let the shoulders fall, feel your body. You are here. Now let's begin. Tatjana, before the books, before the boundaries, and before the healing, there was a moment something in your life cracked. A moment and your body said, enough. Take us to that moment.
Couple of moments. I love that you're diving straight in, and actually also the breathwork exercise you did at the start. I guess for me it was two moments, and for those of you less familiar with my work, I have a big background in the corporate world. So I was 13 years in corporate leadership, all the way up to a board of directors. At the time I was married, I had a little 6-year-old, super ambitious and trying to, get to the world or get the world by storm. What I missed was I completely neglected myself in that process. So if you asked me what was the moment, it was probably twofold. I was recognizing some behaviors in myself I really didn't like. And that was actually outside of my corporate world, which started me off on my personal healing journey. And then specifically in the corporate world, it sounds amazing wearing a big role and a big hat. You're on the plane a lot, jet lagged. You see more of your hotel rooms than sometimes your family and members who are important to you. So after dialing in for one late night call, finishing around 3 a.m. and the next one at 6 a.m. because that's where my boss at that time resided, I woke up and my body just said no. If this is what the next 40 years look like, we need to make some drastic changes. And I think that was the first time when my body overruled the mind, which is why it's been such a big segue in my life ever since.
Beautiful. If your body could have spoken to you a sentence to you then, what would I have said?
If you don't change now, we won't continue that way.
And change is an important part of our life.
Absolutely.
Can be quite a reality check for people. Yeah.
You know, I was no stranger to change. I worked for an IT research company, senior director at the time, and our senior leader always said, if the world outside you is changing faster than the world inside you, you've got a challenge as an organization. So on a business scale, I had that topic nailed. But bringing that into my personal life and including inner healing change at that same level, I think that was the journey it invited me to. And then the combination of both is where magic resides.
What were the feelings like there for you when you were going through that process of your awakening?
Oh, look, at the worst end, suicidal. At the best end, hope, fulfillment, purpose, alignment. That spectrum is so broad and it's such a big journey depending on where you start. So I guess the question I would ask myself now is rather, where am I today? Where am I heading? And what's the fastest action that will get me there?
Exactly. Exactly. So we talk awakenings. There's a period of life where there's a period of a moment when we go through those awakenings. One part of us dies in that moment and one part of us is reborn in its place. No matter what we're going through in that moment, I had my moments. Fellow listeners potentially maybe going through their moments or be on the other side depending on their journey. What part of you was born
Yeah, I
to take its
love that.
place?
Love that question. And I watched a little bit of your journey and I've seen your transformation, which was phenomenal to observe because it was so visual. I wish I had such a quick answer for you because my initial part lasted about 9 years and there was just mental formation. Then came all the embodiment work. So I think there's the first moment where you rip off the Band-Aid and you're bleeding because something just happened and that's impact right in that moment. And then there's the journey you go between being really lost and finding something and feeling like you went 100 steps backwards up to the point where you then come out, emerge, and then you move into being a person that becomes step by step really proud of their actions, or where you see or you start seeing your initial change. And then ideally you dive deeper. So every time I got stuck, every time I wanted to evolve, every time I wanted to change something, when I then launched my own business, before I launched the books and before I started speaking and moved into space holding, there's so many layers of you that have to die. I actually think leadership for a big part is so much about your continuous evolution and transformation and really shaping the path, the person you want to become. And every single step you come to a new formation, you have outgrown the old part. So it's as much as that part got you to one stage, it's then learning again to let this part go in order to move forward. So who have I become since? Really good with boundaries and very, very clear on who I am and I guess the message that I stand for, my brand, my voice, my authentic leadership style. There's so many different layers to it, but even if I stretch that to my personal life, I think I've become a better mother, a better daughter, a better friend, arguably a better human being, still with plenty of faults, still working on it. But it's been a game changer holistically as a whole. And I think that's why I became addicted to inner growth and healing and the journey anybody goes on, why I love helping people through it.
Absolutely beautiful, beautiful. And I heard the mentioned parts.
Oh.
There's a specific healing technique called parts. From one part wants to, while the other part doesn't want to. And at one stage, those parts were whole within our life, and then we've gone through an experience in our life, no matter how good or bad or traumatic, and it's ruptured the nervous system and split those parts. And all we do pretty much as an oversight in the healing work is bring those parts back together as they serve whole and complete as they originally were, so we can become that centered and whole person within our life to go from where we are now to where we want to go in the next evolution of life. Would that sound right?
Love that analogy. Like two things
Yeah.
that came in mind. One is the Japanese vase that breaks and you fill it with gold. And the other part is it's so much about bringing you home and actually learning to love and nurture all the parts that got broken. Why inner child work is so beautiful when you come out the other side, because you actually learn to hold yourself. And I know where my scars, as my tattoos, as my stripes, they're all part of my healing journey. And I wouldn't have that any other way, because now looking back, that's what forms you. That's what shapes you in so many different ways. So beautifully, beautifully said.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Coming home to the self. Now, you did mention some books. I picked up a book from, what was it? which talked about from shifting from people pleaser to boundary badass. What was the title of that book? Because there was a certain slogan that I got really out of it.
Yeah, there was actually the
much,
title
yeah,
From People Pleaser to Boundary
yeah,
Badass. There was the second book
yeah.
I wrote. Hmm.
That was a very interesting read. People love the slogan, but they don't understand the cost. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what this book's about. It is about bringing awareness, or what I got out of was bringing awareness to the cost of the body. Yeah. So around that, where would people pleasing live in your body?
Oh, look, I reckon it lives everywhere. Because for me, the question is, where was it born? Sometimes it's born out of shame. Sometimes it's born out of guilt. And sometimes it's part of your upbringing and where you were raised. So it can be cultural, depending on where it originated from. So what the source is, it will either be in your lower abdomen, where a lot of our family stuff resides. But especially if you think about an emotion like shame, that moves through your entire body. I think the more important part for me as part of the writing process became actually witnessing how often I pleased, because I always thought that, especially in the business world, that I was quite strong mentally and I could communicate the message in the right way. But once you actually realize how often you say yes when you wanted to say no, and how uncomfortable it is sometimes to have really difficult conversations that are really worth it. That's why it can shift across the body. And when you recognize actually where it's stuck for you in that moment, you can also go back to what age does that feel like, and what situation does that moment remind me of, and how can I be compassionate with them, but also with myself as I shift forward. And especially the part about then how do I communicate it right? So it's right for me, because that's a boundary, not with the sledgehammer as I did a couple of times. So disclaimer for those who are reading it, you will read a lot of what not to do as I learned how to set boundaries the right way. It's really learning to embody that message and speak up for yourself. So I guess coming back to your question, it will also be in your throat. And if you come from a lower confidence sign, it will be in your forefront. And there's so many places it can reside. I think once you get clear, first of all, that is a moment. That's not a trigger that needs healing. That's a trigger. That's a boundary that needs to be set. Then getting clear of where it resides for you and what it reminds you of, you can then start shifting off to the point of actually clearly communicating it in the right way, so it drives purposeful interactions and impact.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, we talk a lot about boundaries, and boundaries play an exceptionally important role in our life. Yet so little is explained about the nervous system and how does the nervous system responds when we try to set boundaries early on. So what was that like for you?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you for going there, because I was actually hoping that there's one example where you can really illustrate it. I give you two examples, and both of them happened with my boy, who's the apple of my eye, now turning 16. One was the unhealed version of myself, and the second time was after we already had done a lot of healing. Now, the first time when something comes up, it's a full body wash. You feel triggered in every corner, especially because I was already on that journey of awakening. So I'm an emotional being, right? Hey, so in my case, that transcribes really fast. So it washes through your entire body, and you want to react. And I think the best part about nervous system regulation is actually that moment that it takes. First time it took 10 seconds. Second time I got it down to 3, where you catch yourself and you catch whatever is alive in you in that moment, and you just hold it. And then you breathe into it and you start to regulate your nervous system. So you really connect inside your body. And if you can get yourself that pause, that's all it takes for you to do the switch in order to then move into, why am I reacting to that? What am I making it mean? What is actually happening? And then you can decide. So if that's a boundary that needs to be addressed in that moment, how do I now communicate it the right way? It's just that switch. Like if you can get to that switch, you nailed it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, exactly. And it's important to express our boundaries in a way that everybody gets it. Understand, well, not as such understands, more or less, because we can't understand each other, more or less gets it or acknowledges that and respects their boundaries from a masculine point of view, or love from a feminine. And I really feel your feminine energy. It's beautifully uh, flow. That flow state's beautiful, and very creative. Yeah, I would guess. Um, I love being amongst the feminine energy. It's very radiating. It's very warming and loving. Um,
I really
it
appreciate
calls
it.
me home. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I really appreciate
So,
Greg, because also in like maybe
mm,
talking to the masculine, and I love that you just pointed
mm,
that out for balance. I think there's a very
mm,
right way to say set a boundary and a very wrong way.
mm,
And I think you can be heard in both ways. And what I learned
no,
is how I can communicate vulnerably from a place of this is how that just made me feel. And here's what's okay and what isn't. That will set the same message as when I went in with a bulldozer. And I think especially earlier in my career in leadership, I was very much leaning on the more masculine end. So learning how to balance that, whether you're male or female, I think is a beautiful quality. So thanks for pointing that out.
yeah, you're exactly right. And I absolutely love women who step into leadership. I've got full respect for women who step into the masculine world and can hold their energy well and lead well, and hold their energy amongst masculine men and lead them from a place of going from where they are now to where the team and the organization needs to get. Yeah, it's beautiful when it's everything's unfolding and everyone is in connection, and the whole team's unified. It's types of organizations I crave to work with and crave to work for. I've only experienced a couple in my life. However, the workplace is slowly shifting as we dive deeper and deeper into the masculine and the feminine energies, and the way and the different styles of polarity, and how we can use this polarity to create unity and not polarize. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I love that you made that point because I also had the best masculine leaders in the organization who were
Yeah.
incredibly inspirational, who taught me so many things. And especially for men out there who have an opportunity to support a woman who's in the growth process, those men were instrumental. And when you put both brain powers together, that's where, and we talked about magic earlier, that's where magic really happens.
Mm,
It's
mm,
combining head and heart, and it's leaning more on one or the other depending on what the organization requires. But it's really in the combination of both. So I love that you highlighted that.
mm. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's certainly, definitely well. And knowing our strengths and applying our strengths. Um, I know as a masculine, solid masculine, I'm very structured and regiment, and I work very well with the feminine because the feminine helps me
Right?
de-structure and go with the flow a little bit, and not get so upset when things don't happen according to a calendar. I can just relax and go, okay, well, we'll try that again tomorrow. Add a bit of flow into my life, because living a life by a calendar gets so monotonous, right? For a routine, a regiment, it just gets so
Totally.
repetitive.
And
And that,
it's a blessing and a curse when you're a leader
mm,
yourself because you sometimes have such high expectations towards yourself. And because everything
mm,
touches everything, if one thing then doesn't go to plan, it can be really frustrating in that moment. So I love that you've got good women around you who will navigate and
mm.
allow you to play.
I have a lovely Brazilian partner who's very feminine in her energy. She is so creative and very flow, in a creative flow state of her energy, completely to the point that she does not live by a diary or a calendar. It's
Amazing.
beautiful to watch, and it's beautiful to witness, to stand and hold that energy, the chaos, the creativity, that energy. It's beautiful to watch and to witness. And without greater acknowledgement. Not a lot of men can handle that, but for those who go deep and deep into the work of understanding the different polarities, they can harness that energy and hold that energy. And the feminine's beautiful in its shape. It's such an amazing energy to watch. There's moments where we choose me. I choose me. I've been through that moment. You've been through that moment, had moments of that, maybe one or multiple moments of that. Take us to that moment where your body finally said, enough's enough. You choose you. Because the mind can continue to, the mind's a resilient piece of art in itself. It can take the amount of beatings and still be in its own thought process. But the body knows somatically when we feel it, when we've had enough. What was a moment in your life where you drew that line and you said, that's enough. I finally chose me?
Yeah, look, probably 2 moments. And I wish it would have come in that moment that I described earlier. For me, that was the wake up call initially. But I think this second moment still came a couple of years later, and I did daily meditations by then, why I'm now such an advocate for burnout prevention and why I built a signature program around that. I think there were really 2 moments that stood out for me, and both of them really hard. Hey, so sometimes when we say, my business is called The Art and Science of Choosing You, and sometimes when we talk about I choose me, it can sound really selfish or less thoughtful. I actually think sometimes these are the hardest decisions because in a moment when you're choosing yourself, evidently by default, you will be or you might be upsetting somebody else. So I think the 2 moments were when I had to walk away from my marriage and then when I left the corporate role. And if you've been in that world for close to 17 years in total, that's significant change. So I think both on a business and personal level, I talked about my personal side earlier, so maybe I focus here on the business side, making that decision to choose you and then continuing to choose yourself every single day. I think that's where the real challenge lies, because I think every leader decides every single morning how far they're going to push it, where you want to take your business, how you're going to scale, the type of person you want to become, who you want to impact, how you want to work, what you want to be known for. There's so many different elements. So choosing you in that moment, again, it's a snapshot in time where you decide. But after you decide, it sounds very poetic and lots of people love the dream. But when it gets hard, that's when true leadership comes to the surface. Are you still committed to that same dream when it's really late at night and you'd rather sleep, or your friends are having a party and of course you'd want to go there, but you've committed to a certain life for years, sometimes decades. How will you show up when people tell you, why don't you just go back? Because it gets hard. So I guess it's choosing you when the pain rises. It's choosing you when things have to die. It's choosing you when things break. It's choosing the hard conversations. All of that is part of choosing you. That's why I think it's an art, but also a science, because as much as there's heart, and you need a really strong lion heart in order to keep fighting for it, you also need a lot of inner strength, mental strength. Why I'm actually such an advocate of holistic healing, and why every single time when I hit a border or a corner or something feels stuck, why you need to upgrade again and again and again, at least in my world.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Having that solid identity, knowing who you are and choosing you is definitely important, particularly, well, if you have your own, say, franchise or small business, or even some sort of managerial role within a business, or entrepreneurship is the other term that's come to surface in the last sort of 5-10 years. It's knowing who you are as that leader, as that individual, and holding and grounding your identity, even when the times get tough, and not let your job or your role or your business that I see so many people get sucked down the drain and being torn to shreds by their business because they don't know who they are. Franchises fail, CEOs get fired, behaviors happen, all at the result of this. And this is a byproduct, if not control, called leadership drift. And we're seeing it currently in the market over and over and over. And we're slowly awakening it. And without that proper identity of knowing who the fuck I am, groundedly, and hold that, as selfish as that sounds, and choosing me and my health and well-being, and learning to do daily exercises and rituals such as meditation, breath work, or some more somatic modalities which integrate it all back to the body, and they're all beautiful practices to hold that identity, to really bring it back to me, because I choose me at the end of the day. There's only one me. I can be replaced, but I can't be replaced. My energy can't be replaced. My style of leadership can't be replaced. I can't be replaced as a father for my kids. Yeah, that's probably the most important thing. If I've got a family at home, I can't be
I love
replaced.
that you said that, because it's to me it's such an evolution, because who you are today is not necessarily who you are tomorrow. Right. And sometimes if I reflect back on my early career in leadership, I was trying so much to learn from the best practices of others. And I had some great leaders, so a lot of them were epic. And then you learn to find your voice. But I think especially when you then launch your own business, you become the product. So it's so important that you adjust and evolve with your product and I guess with who you are. And in a world of AI where so many things are copied and it's so easy to lean on somebody else's because that's more successful, or you scale at a different level, staying true to who you are. And maybe identity is something that you look more long term. I look at them, I guess, who you are as a core, your core values, your beliefs, your strengths. And then also as you navigate with change, who you need to become. If you stay true to yourself while daring things that others haven't, that becomes your home advantage. So I love and support everything yourself. Absolutely look after your mental health. That's your main number one priority. Don't outsource that to anyone, but also stay flexible enough in your approach that as time changes, as technology changes, as system change, as your business requires different things of you, that you grow with that in combination.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely incorporate a lot of core values into the work I do, and beliefs and capabilities. However, I start with identity first. Who are you as a leader? What is your greatest purpose? Some say, what is your North Star? What is your greatest purpose in life? Who are you? Who are you really? You're
Who
a
are you when
father. You're a
nobody is
leader. You're a mother.
watching? Mm.
Exactly right. Instead of starting, Robert Dilts come up with the beautiful logical levels of therapy, and I've incorporated that model into the work that I do. And instead of coaching up his pyramid and starting with environment and going into behaviors, capabilities to get the Band-Aid effect, the temporary effect, I start down the pyramid. I start with the identity first. Who are you? What's your highest purpose? What's that one word that you will not negotiate to yourself or to others? That's where we begin. Then we go down. We walk the line. We turn that word into values. What's your top 5 values? Then we go to beliefs. What's your beliefs are all around that? Then there may be some exercise and stuff around that. Then we look at capabilities. What capabilities do I have? What resources do I have available? And what skills would I have to learn? And because life's a considerable learning journey, no leader is a leader who stops learning, whether you're in business or working for someone. And then we look at behaviors and then the environment last of all. Yeah, that's pretty much the style that I roll, and it's beautifully. Robert Dilts come up with that model. It's called the logical levels of therapy, initially from the NLP sort of background, and I've adapted it really, really well. It's a beautiful model to watch and witness outplay, and we bring all these amazing modalities around and work with clients through their journey, and we bring tools and bring it all back to the body somatically. So if we
Beautiful.
look at it as a big jigsaw puzzle, one piece of the jigsaw puzzle may be breath work. Another piece may be sound healing. Another piece may be hypnosis session. Another piece may be a strategies NLP session. However, leaving those pieces by themselves singly will get to the effect that it does.
Totally.
And more or less
I
without
love
follow-up.
that.
Yeah.
I love that because
We bring it
everything
all back
touches
together.
everything.
Yeah.
The question I love asking leaders is, how often do you spend time around the kitchen table? Because for me, leadership starts at home and then you bring it to the office. It starts with the conversations you have with your neighbors, your friends. I actually learned conscious leadership from a head monk in Bhutan and from the person I met along the way who was actually embodying it. So everything you just described about breathwork and NLP, that's when you bring it all to light. Otherwise, it's just techniques, right? But how do you show up day to day? How do you respond when something goes wrong, when you've made a mistake? And how do you course correct? And then absolutely, what do you stand for? Who do you believe you are? And how does that translate? Beautiful.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. Robert Dills points that we're in the fourth generation of modality, which is the proto-consciousness with the greater, the spiritual realm, the proto-consciousness. We're all connected as one unit, as one energy. And as leaders, we deserve to ground ourselves within that energy and lead from that place of our highest purpose.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
everybody's road there will look differently. For me, I connected most with myself when I studied dance therapy. And there was a combination of meditation, breath work, and then actually the embodiment of the elements in dance. But then I looked into different rituals and studied sound healing. And to your point, I think it's such an individual journey. So whatever connects you to the creator, to source, to your higher selves, to insights, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you sit on the spectrum of spirituality, whatever that brings out in you. Some people start running, some people start with yoga and then have some more physical techniques. So it's all about shedding layers and shining a spotlight in inside your heart and body.
Exactly right. Now, you work with a lot of different modalities yourself, such as inner child work, which is beautiful to witness. Many entrepreneurs avoid feeling because they're afraid to. Why is somatic work, you think, is the missing link to leadership?
I think it's the missing link to so many things. Before I started on, I guess my medicine journey, as I call it now, because words are medicine and sound is medicine, and a lot of the shamanic work that I do, especially, I didn't write. So all my creativity was sitting beyond that. I also didn't realize, which the stuff that I had stored in my body. So I did 9 years of mental work, different coaching techniques. I studied with the group. I ran events. I did some trauma workshops with Dr. Gabor, and that showed me how much was stuck in the mind. When I afterwards realized how much was stored in the body, that's where your subconscious stuff lies. That's where sometimes block trauma comes to the surface. And there's so many different modalities you can explore. I think what it opened up in me was actually, first of all, it opened the door to feeling, and that can be scary. So for anybody who's in that boat, I hear you, I see you. It's definitely a process you go into, but you also don't have to go from, I'm afraid of feeling, to suddenly I'm opening myself to this entire world. So baby steps, take it at your pace. I guess the benefit of emptying it is you actually don't hold it at your core. And that's the stuff that manifests. So if you look into lots of books from Louise Hay to Dr. Gabor, all this stuff, the body keeps count, that remains in you. So when you open that door to release it, initially it will feel painful because those are some really painful moments that you've experienced, whether that's as a child or at school or in your first relationships, whenever they occurred. And then comes actually the beautiful shift where you get to hold yourself within it. And now I look at it as a really an honoring of the woman I have become and all the different layers and shapes it's taken until then. So when it then came back to leadership, as I was doing the 9 years of development work, whilst I was in my corporate senior leadership role and whilst I was having the board of directors role, My conversations with my team changed. I was incorporating a lot of those modalities into my team meetings. I was bringing more presence into sections during our busiest times. I responded very differently, and I also focused on actually ensuring that they're okay on every single level. So if you talk about how do you increase the bottom line, it's by making really sure that you look after the people that work for you. And if you look at them, not just from a business point of view and from a performance metric point of view, but also on a personal level, it just means that you get to go home proud. And when you look in the mirror and you see the reflection of the leader that's looking back at you, that's a game changer. So for that alone, I would do it over and over and over again.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And what shifts when a leader's nervous system becomes coherent with themselves? What do you
Oh,
think
love
shifts
that
there?
question.
All right.
Love that question. Look, so many things. I think when especially if
Mm,
you're in a toxic work environment, especially if you're in a place where you need to prove yourself, especially if you climb up the leadership ladder, there will be conversations that if you're the master of your emotions, you will be able to keep your strategic head on. It will ensure that you don't react, but you pause, you respond, you reflect, and then you decide when you're going to take your stab, if you wish. It means that you are so much more strategic, so much more ahead of the game. That's just when it comes to the political landscape. But if you can regulate your nervous system in moments when it gets hard, when it gets really tough, when you need to make quick decisions, you actually still remain level set. So on so many different levels, be that at home or in your office, I think, there's sometimes a fuse that will be deciding your way one way or another. It can be your career, that can be your marriage, that can be your life in general. If you learn to control your nervous system, you're ahead of the game.
exactly right. Exactly right. You speak beautifully into the conscious leadership and the conscious parenting and of overall the conscious family and generational healing. Leadership in business is part of that dynamic. Our workers are our family. As my coaches have coached me, treat our clients like our family, as there's only family is derived by loyalty, blood and loyalty in itself, yeah? Legacy isn't what you just build, it's what you leave in your children's nervous systems, yeah? How do boundaries, I love this conversation around boundaries. How does that change a family?
Oh, it changes it in every single way. And I actually also love the way that you led into it because it's such a big journey. And I think some of those lessons you have to learn the hard way as as much as I would pretend that it comes easy. The way boundaries play into family dynamics is in so many different ways. It starts with holidays. So there's physical boundaries, there's energetic boundaries, there's spiritual boundaries, there's you can look at it in so many different ways. I guess what I was great at in the past, which is one of the reasons my marriage broke, was sweeping things under the carpet. Because I thought if we don't fight, it looks like peace, but it was actually false peace. So when you learn to set boundaries the right way, you're not just choosing yourself, but you're choosing others. And what I learned on that journey is you actually set boundaries with the people you want to keep in your life. And that's the important piece to remember. We just need an adjustment in our relationship, be that with your mom and dad or with your siblings or with your spouse, with your children. So when it comes to actually that checklist with them, is there that a boundary that needs to be set? How much does that go against my core values, or what's the long-term implication if I don't address it? It's a whole different way of how you can address it. But even as we're going into the holiday season now, some people are dreading the festivities because it's always uncomfortable. There's topics that come up, and there's beautiful ways to work around them. I actually created a holiday guide once, whether that's consciously taking yourself out of that space or finding a way to change a topic or just not responding in the way you did before. Sometimes silence can also be a very beautiful boundary, unless it's silence treatments, then it can be manipulation. So I guess it's finding a way that works for you to say it in a way that as you leave the gathering, the relationship, that moment, that you look back at it in pride because you feel like as much as you chose yourself in that moment, you also chose the relationship. So it moves from fighting against each other to, no, we are consciously, intentionally working on this relationship together to make it better. And even if you just lead with that when you're setting a boundary, the reason I'm having that conversation with you is because I want to connect with you more, or this is something that's really upset me in the process. Can we talk about the why? And then you set your boundary. That opens you up to many different conversations.
Exactly right. And the boundaries help us refuse to pass patterns down that we don't want, or the energy which can lead the patterns. Now we move into the legacy. Yeah. What legacy do you want your children to feel? Not understand, but feel in their bodies.
What it really means to be connected to self. Because I feel like everything
Beautiful.
outside of you is a reflection of who you are inside. The connections you have with other people, how deep, how raw, how vulnerable you can go, depends on the level of depth you can reach within yourself. It's about learning to work with your shadows. It's learning to work and understand your ego. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. So it's holistically looking at who you are, unapologetically, knowing the good, the bad, the ugly, choosing yourself, and as a result of it, choosing all others.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And choosing yourself first and how you choose yourself others, because it's when leaders who step into their own legacy forge, they're not just building a business. A business is a byproduct of who they are. It's a new identity, a new nervous system, a new lineage for the greater sake and the greater good. So who are you becoming now?
Hmm. Well, I'm still a badass in many, many different ways. I guess the person I want to become now is somebody who inspires others to continue on their own healing journey. Somebody who inspires hope in people when they feel lost, and somebody who reminds others just how amazing they are. So if I can help others fall in love with themselves a little bit more, good, bad, and ugly, that's good enough for me.
Exactly right. And I'll just dig a little deeper because I'm super curious. What is the next edge of your legacy? The part that scares you because you know it's yours.
Oh, look, I'm actually not scared of it anymore. I'm really excited about the next stage. And I think that's why I talk so much about evolution and family constellations and moving beyond your limits. So what's next for me? I've got 2 more books coming. I'm starting my studies in December to deepen my practice. I'm diving deep in the topic of AI to see how I can scale my business. There's a stage somewhere with my name on it, but all of that's still to come. I think as I'm reforming, reshaping who I am today, it's more and more shifting to mission and service and impact and heart. So that's why I'm excited, because I feel like I've laid the foundation, the building blocks, and now the next part, that's just the beginning.
Beautiful, beautiful. Legacy isn't just words. Legacy is not just a marketing term that gets thrown around in the modern day media. Legacy is transmission, body to body, energy to energy, somatic memory. The body always keeps score. As I read in a book a little while ago that was handed to me when I was going through my journey, felt impact. Our presence is always felt in one way or another. Your presence becomes the message. My presence, your presence, we come together as a collective presence to feel into others. Our message is to be felt. We become the message, a greater message. Tatjana, what is the somatic legacy you want to leave behind?
The somatic legacy I want to leave behind. Gosh, that's such a big question. Find a somatic practice that works for you. Now, in my world, that became anything from dance to embodiment to shamanic practices to kundalini. Find something that makes you feel like home. Find something that actually doesn't feel like exercise, that you genuinely enjoy. And then find yourself an accountability partner. And that counts for leadership as much as your personal life, because even as Simon Sinek once said, even a great leader needs somebody to bounce ideas off, who's there for them when things break. So look after your nervous system in the best possible way, but don't go it alone. Whether you're high accomplished somewhere out there, a leadership journey can be a lonely journey if you try to accomplish it on your own. So look after your nervous system and let somebody else look after yours too.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Now, just quickly finish this sentence with me. My legacy is felt when.
You believe you have truly come home to yourself and are unapologetically choosing you, good, bad, and ugly.
Beautiful. Very beautiful. And I felt that. Someone who's very kinesthetic. I felt that come down through my body. Now, listeners, just quickly, as we wrap this episode up, it's been a beautiful episode, taken a bit of a deeper dive into the body this round. We've taken a somatic journey. So as we close this episode out, just place a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly. You've just heard the truth from someone who chose herself. And I'll anchor that in from someone who chose herself. Now the question becomes, will you choose you? Because legacy doesn't begin with strategy. It begins with sensation. It begins in the body, and it begins now. And breathe out. Tatjana, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this amazing episode. There's a lot of takeaways here. I'll certainly be re-listening to it and taking notes, as my next step of the journey is finding that center point and helping bring all my modalities that I've learnt back into one place so that I can just, like a jigsaw puzzle, empty the box out and then we just put that puzzle together. And then each modality is that puzzle. As we used to do as kids, right? Go solve an old-fashioned jigsaw puzzle. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I look forward to watching your jigsaw puzzle come to life. Thank you for the epic questions. That was so much fun.
Thank you. Now, where can listeners find you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me through my socials, Tatjana Genies, or find me on tatjanagenies.com. Drop me a message if this resonated, and I hope to see you at one of my events also.
Cool. Beautiful. And of course, all the details will be in the show notes for listeners. And don't forget to like and subscribe across Spotify, Apple, and YouTube for the video. Once again, Tatjana, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And we'll connect again on the Shamanic Journeys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. No worries. And bye for now.